Hello, I'm Anneke. I have a master's in clinical psychology. Welcome, Errol. In this interview, I would like to ask you about your ex-wife, Maye, mother of Elon. She wrote a book and she talks extensively about you in this book, and she says very damning things about you, and I think it's only right that you have the chance to reply.
Thank you.
So I'm going to ask you a few things.
Well, first of all, let me say, yes, there are 3 books that have been written. One is this one that May wrote, and then there's this one was written quite a long time ago, and one has just been written, and all of them are inaccurate, very inaccurate on family issues, family matters. They are not accurate.
The only way is to go to the source and ask directly. So
Yes.
I would like to ask you, this is a heavy one, but did you abuse Elon's mother physically and emotionally?
Did I abuse Elon's mother physically and emotionally?
Yes.
No. I never ever did that, and I loved May very much. She was everything to me, and so that's ridiculous. It's absurd, and I loved her more than anything that I've ever loved in my life.
I read that you threatened to cut up May's face with razor blades.
Well, that's absurd. The first time I saw this comment was when Elon arrived on a train at the age of about 9 from Durban, when he had gone, after May and I split up, and he went to stay at our twin home in Natal. And he came up on the train, and the first time I saw that phrase is in a letter that Elon gave me from May, because he was a surprise. Suddenly he came up from Durban, and there was a letter with him, and the letter said, "I'm sending him to you because of your threat to cut up my face with razor blades," which is, that's ridiculous. It was made up.
Okay. Did Elon have a miserable childhood?
No, he had a very nice, happy childhood. I see he talks about having had a miserable childhood now. It's a sort of narrative they have in the US that he seems to follow. But in reality, the truth is, in fact, in one of these books, where the latest book, they interview some of Elon's friends, and they all say that he was a very happy boy, and that I encouraged him all the time, and yes, that's the book, and I encouraged him all the time, and they say he was a very happy child, a very happy friend of theirs. So that's ridiculous.
Oh, I also saw that in a Sunday report,
Yeah, it's in the newspaper.
Newspaper in South Africa,
Yeah.
that his school friend replied, he
Yes.
enjoyed the weekends with you.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Do you ever not wanted to buy a computer for Elon?
No, that's not true. I've read that as well. No. Elon had all the computers from the very beginning, Atari, VIC-20, others that his name I don't remember. But when the real first PC came out, he wanted that. And it was the price of slightly less than a new Mercedes-Benz motor car. So, when he said he wanted it, I was a little, wow, okay. But then I agreed, and he got it on the day it came out.
Okay.
And he was 11. He'd been with me 2 years already.
Okay, so he got the computer after staying with you. He didn't
Yes.
have a computer before the time.
No.
Okay. So he didn't come to you because there was a computer waiting.
No, he didn't come to me because there was a computer.
Okay. Were you ever violent with Elon?
Never violent with Elon. I mean, there's no reason. He was a very, very good child. There's absolutely no reason to be violent with Elon. So that's absurd.
Okay. Did you ever beat up May?
No, I never ever beat up May, and that's absurd. And to even, I can't even answer that question. It's so ridiculous that May, for example, was a very very straight girl. So if you said the word hell, she would say to you, "You mustn't use foul language." if I said it's a hell of a day, she would say, don't use language like that in front of me. So I mean, that was like her tolerance level. So beating her up was like way past such a thing. So she wouldn't even let you say hell. So you wouldn't go beyond that.
Errol, you're an intelligent man, and surely you would like to be with an interesting woman. I read that you call Maye ugly, stupid, and boring, and that's why you and her are now friends.
Well, that's so absurd. I don't know what to say. Maye's the most beautiful woman I've ever known. That's the second thing. First thing. Second thing is, stupid. No, Maye is incredibly clever. And so, I put her in the really top 1% of women, intelligent women I've ever met. And so that's absolutely ridiculous. And what was the last one?
Ugly, boring, stupid.
Boring. No, Maye was not boring. That's why I married her. I mean, that's why I loved her, because she was so exciting, and she was always ready for anything, to do anything, and that's why one of the reasons that I loved her so much.
Did you cheat on Maye?
Did I cheat on Maye when I was married? No, not at all. I mean, what? No, not at all. I mean, I have heard people say things like that. I know that in one book, one report said something to the effect that I was screwing around. I admit that I was screwing around. What I meant was I didn't say that. I said I said I screwed up, which is like meaning I didn't pay attention to my wife. I started taking, after 10 years, a little bit for granted, and that was wrong. And it had a lot to do with the fact the type of pressure men have in business, and you start to put more emphasis on that, and you presume your wife understands, but of course that's completely wrong. And I had a good example of this. One time a few of my friends and I quite recently were sitting around and talking about our ex-wives, and we had one friend who had just been married for 18 years at the time. It was about a few years ago, and he'd been married for 18 years at the time. We actually said to him, "Wow, you're so lucky, and you have such a good relationship." You see, he said, "What?" He said, "No." He says, "I have to work on my relationship every day. I don't know what the state of my relationship is day by day." So he said, "Oh, and then you realize, okay, I screwed up."
Okay, yeah, so you neglected
Well, yeah, you don't realize that you're doing that.
Okay. Then if we can go where it started, did you fly to Cape Town with an engagement ring after not seeing Maye for a year?
No, I did, I had the typical nervous breakdown that you have when you finally get to the end of your university studies, having a girlfriend who wants to get married and you have absolutely nothing. And so, panic starts to set in, and a sort of reaction is, hey, I've got to get out of this or something, because, how can I do this, And
how old were you then?
I was 22.
Okay.
And so I sort of felt I have to, but Maye always came back. She always came back to me, and she came back to me 3 times. Contacted me 3 times after, in that period of about 18 months. She would come and visit me sometimes at the office work that I had, and she'd just arrive. And it would be so amazing, because I'd be sitting there thinking about her, and the door would open and there would be Maye. And I was like, wow. And it was so strange. And that happened about 3 times in that period. And then we would go and have lunch or something, and then she would leave. And the last time she did that, she walked away and she said to me, "Enjoy your life. Have a good life. No, enjoy your life." Something like that, anyway. And she walked off, and I thought, well, okay. But after about 2 years, and actually of starting to work, I actually found myself had gone up quite a lot, quite quickly, and Maye had come back as well, just shortly before we got married, and had contacted me again. And we had seen each other, and then for a short time, and then she went to Cape Town to get a job, and wanted to marry her. So I had a fantastic double diamond ring made by the finest jeweler in Johannesburg, and I sent it to her in the post. I didn't write anything with it. So I think it had a return address, Errol Musk or something. But I just sent her the ring in the post.
Okay. And did May say yes to the marriage?
Yes, she said yes right away.
Did she receive the ring and then, or how did it work?
Obviously she received the ring and said yes.
Yes, but so did she phone you? Did you go and ask her?
I can't remember. Did she phone me? Of course she phoned me. What else?
Okay. How many times did you propose to her?
Once.
Okay.
No, she says I continued to propose to her for 6 years. It's not really true. I wasn't in a position to marry anybody, so I only proposed once.
Okay, yeah, it seems between 22 and 24 there's a lot of progress that you made
No,
in
I
your
made a lot of
career.
progress in those first 2 years.
Okay, and did you fool May into marrying you?
No, I don't understand that aspect where she talks about something about being fooled into being married. I can't understand any of that. It makes no sense to me. I had very little to do with the organization of the wedding, except that during the course of planning it, obviously it wasn't like my job to plan it really. She told me that her twin sister has decided also to want to get married, and that they're going to get married to her boyfriend, and we're going to have a double wedding. And I objected to that. I said, no, I don't want a double wedding. I don't want a double wedding. So I was sort of emotionally, I suppose, not so good on that. I said, no, I'm not having a double wedding. So, I didn't think it was what I didn't like the idea. And anyway, May would ask me, please, don't worry, it'll be all right. And then eventually I said, okay, fine. So we had a double wedding.
Did you go on honeymoon?
Yes, we went on honeymoon. I took May to Europe on honeymoon. I took her to Portugal, England, Italy, Switzerland, France.
At the age
Greece.
of 24?
Yeah, at the age of 24.
Wow.
Yeah, and so we went to...
Wow. After how long was Elon born?
Elon was born 9 months and 2 days after the day of the marriage, and I wasn't pretty concerned about that. It didn't occur to me even, but I do remember May being concerned about it a little bit, and I do remember her saying afterwards that stressing to people that Elon was married 9 months and 2 days after the marriage, which sort of like was important in those days.
Oh, so okay. Was May terrified to live with you?
Well, if she was terrified to live with me, she certainly never showed it. I was a bit terrified to live with her, because she's very strict, and the house, she ran the house. So you had to do what she said, you see. So, for example, I'd come home sometimes, after a terrible day, and after an hour or so of sort of unwinding, I would be in a sort of mood, let's say, after supper or something, and then I'd be playing with the children, and then it would get to like 7:30, and then she would say to the children, go to bed now, it's time to go to bed now. And they would like get up like little soldiers, and nobody said no to her, and I would say, well, can't they stay a little longer? And then she'd say no. I'd say, all right, okay.
Maybe she wanted some time with you.
No, she's very strict.
Okay. Who handled the financial matters in your house?
May handled all the financial matters. She, I think they said in this, somewhere there that I abused her financially. I don't know how that's possible, because May carried all the credit cards. So she had all the credit cards, all the checkbooks. She handled all the accounts, all the payments. If I wanted something, I would ask her, are we okay for something like that? And she would tell me. And and if she saw something that she thought we should get that was expensive, she would contact me and say first and ask me to have a look at it, if I'm okay with it too. So that was quite nice. But she had complete control of all all our assets, all our accounts, all our finances.
Okay, so she was a responsible person
Very,
regarding that.
very
Yeah.
responsible.
Then something that I don't understand, did the children hide when you allegedly hit May when Elon, and with Elon trying to stop you? Because Elon says later in a video that he went to stay with you because he had never seen you abuse his mother.
Yeah,
it's a
actually,
bit
that's a contradiction. Yes, yeah, I believe, yeah, actually, I saw an extract like that that was attributed to my daughter, Sana Tosca. So where apparently Tosca said they would hide in the corners and cry, and I would beat May, and Elon would pull at my legs and all that sort of stuff. And it was somehow attributed to Tosca. So I contacted Tosca, and I said, what is this? So she said to me, oh, Dad, don't worry about it, it's just the media. So I said, oh, okay. So I just left it. No, I mean, that's absolute absurd. I mean, it's absolute nonsense. What was the question, actually? Oh, yes. And then, I mean, Elon later came to stay with me, and it's actually they make the same point. They make the point later on that he'd never seen any abuse that would prevent him from coming to stay with me. So it was contradictory, So obviously there was no abuse. That was ridiculous. That's absurd.
Okay, and then how did the divorce work? What did you do when you received the papers from me?
Well, I was very surprised. I went down to Cape Town with Ilona and Kimball I thought I had a home in the bush and I had a home in Natal, and I had a home in Pretoria and so on. And I thought it would be nice to have a home in Cape Town. So Elon and Kimball and I set off for Cape Town, and we were looking around, and then I phoned May, and then she told me she wants to have a divorce. And so I went back to Pretoria, and I got the divorce papers. She was in Durban at our home there, and I simply called her attorney and said yes, fine, and I signed the papers, and the same day, and then I knew people at the court, so I was able to because as a city councillor and so on. So I was able to put it on the roll for the next Wednesday. The divorces were on a Wednesday, and I received this summons on a Thursday. So I was able to put it on the roll for the coming Wednesday. So it went in and was accepted on the roll.
That's short.
Yeah, and she only had to appear once a couple of weeks later in court to ratify it. But that's
so was there? Could you see it's going to go there? Did you see her the week before the divorce? Did you go out? Did you have contact?
No, she stayed in Natal. I did go down to Natal to ask her when I first got the divorce papers, why, and she just said she wants to be on her own for 18 months. So I said, well, all right, well, fine.
Some other time you referred in an informal conversation about a red dress that she had, that you were out with a red dress with her.
Yes, it's rather odd. I mean, I suppose you could say a couple of days, 3 or 4 days before I received the divorce papers, May and I went out to a party and bought her from Annelise Fashions, a very good fashion company, the most beautiful red dress. And we went out and we came home, and we had probably one of the best nights together as a couple that we ever had. So it was kind of strange to get the divorce papers a few days later.
What happened to the children immediately after the divorce?
Well, when we had the divorce, originally May was going to take Tosca to live in Natal with her, which was pretty normal because she went up and down quite regularly. You see, and I used to commute with an aeroplane for weekends when they were down there. I'd fly down there and spend the weekends, and then I'd come back to work during the week. And so I was used to it. So she was going to take Tosca, and the boys were going to stay with me. So they were in a pretty good private school that I had them in, luckily to get them in. And I kept them at that school. Mothers started helping me, and then after a while she came back and said she thinks she would like to have the boys. And so I thought about it, and I thought, well, my program as a consulting engineer, he was taking me all over the country. And it was worrying me that, not being a full-time parent. And I thought they needed their mother. And so I, against the advice of my own family and so on, they said, don't do it. I said, no, I think they need their mother. So I said, yeah, that's fine.
And then the children still came back to you. I don't know whether there was a boyfriend or whatever. So did you refer to something that there was a custody issue?
Oh, yes. Well, shortly after, about 2 months after the boys went down, I got a call from the school. They were in 2 different schools for some reason that I have no explanation for. I got a call from both schools saying that unless I do something about the condition of the boys, they were like independent calls. They are going to call social welfare because Elon and Kimball were coming to school dirty, unkempt, falling asleep in class and asking for food. And Elon was also, I was told by the one school that he doesn't come to school, and that people had found him wandering the streets and called the police to come and pick him up and take him to school. And so they said, if I don't do something about it, they're going to report me to social welfare or something. I tried to phone Maye, and she had a boyfriend. I was quite surprised after we separated that she went for a lower level of person than she was used to being with in my life, But at any rate, I spoke to this boyfriend, and he told me that I can go and multiply somewhere. So I didn't quite know what to do. I went to see our church minister, and Maye used to be a Sunday school teacher there, and he had a parishioner who was a lawyer. So we went to see him, and he said, look, the only thing you can do is you're going to have to sue for custody. So I said, okay. So we sued for custody, and then of course I had to deal with the schools and tell them I'm trying to fix this thing. And I also, by the way, when the schools contacted me, the maid at our home in Natal, who was looking after the children when Maye went down there, she said she's being left with the children for a week at a time with no food, and she can't do it anymore. She can't stand it. She doesn't know what to do anymore. And she's feeding them putu, which is like maize meal. That's all that she had, and so on. So it was pretty harsh, and so we had a couple of months of this horrible situation, and when we were finally ready to go into court, for the hearing, I said to Maye, because I was seeing her with the attorneys, look, I called her aside privately, and I said to her, look, if you tell me that you will look after the children properly, then I'll just drop all this, and I'll pay everybody's accounts. So she said, no, please. She said, I will really look after them, and so I dropped, so I dropped the case, told the attorneys to give me their accounts and pay them all off, and we just carried on. The boys went back to stay with her. But I saw the children every school holiday. So in the first 6 months after the divorce, the children went with me for 6 weeks to the United States, and we went to Disneyland and so on. So I saw the children every holiday. They came and spent every holiday with me, all 3.
And so Kimball also came and stayed with you after Elon
No,
came.
Yes, Elon came. Elon. What happened was Elon left when he was in grade 3, and then when he was towards the end of grade 4, I got a letter saying on my desk, a written message saying that Elon is going to be on the Durban-Johannesburg train tomorrow morning, arriving in Johannesburg at 10 o'clock tomorrow morning, and I should pick him up. I don't know who left the note.
But how many hours on a train? Wasn't
it's overnight. I mean, you leave at 5 o'clock in Durban, you arrive at 10 o'clock in Johannesburg in the next morning.
Wasn't it dangerous?
Well, I'd say for a 9-year-old, I wouldn't have done it, but today I certainly wouldn't do it. But at any rate, he managed it, and I went to the station, picked him up, and he was beaming, little boy, hi Dad. And so we went for our first burger, of course, 10 o'clock in the morning, Elon maintained a burger as a balanced meal. It's a completely balanced meal, he'd tell everybody. But anyway, yeah, so That's how Elon came to stay with me. And then shortly after that, but again, every holiday, all school holidays, all three came to stay with me, even long weekends. And Tosca was most emphatic of all three of them to be included. And Tosca, May and I took Elon and Kimmel, just before we were divorced, we took Elon and Kimmel and went to Europe, and we went to several countries in Europe and Ireland. And we never took Tosca. And it took Tosca, I think Tosca was a grown adult when she would still say to me, "You left me behind." And I would say, "Yeah, like, I'm sorry." But it was actually not May decided to do that. I think it's because she wanted a little bit less of a load, but we shouldn't have left Tosca alone. Anyway, but Tosca was most emphatic about coming up on after we were divorced to spend holidays with me, and she had her own room and all that sort of stuff, her own horse. She was emphatic about that more than the boys even.
Your mother, I've learned that she has a very strong personality.
Yes.
And she was like a leader. Your mother that you looked up to. Yeah. But she once said you're ruthless with your ambitions.
I'm ruthless. Yeah. No, she would say to me, "I'm ruthless." And the thing is, in the type of work I did, I couldn't, you start off thinking that everything's good in life and everybody's good and everybody's going to do their best and all that sort of stuff. But when you get into like the kind of world of business, big business that I was in, you find that there are a lot of chances, a lot of people who will actually put you in trouble and put a lot of people in trouble if they get half a chance, if it means a few dollars in their or pounds in their pocket. So you actually become quite you have to become quite sharp, I would say, and everything. And so I would generally, if people did something that was bad, I would try to give them a chance. So I'd give them 3 chances, but that was it. And then after that, I would bring the hatchet down. And I was in a very powerful position, so I could do that. And so I developed a very good relationship with all the people that all the contractors that I employed and so on. But they knew that I was not to be messed around with. So I suppose it's something like that.
No, you wouldn't let people take chances with you.
No, but like Elon now, he's the same.
Very much.
Never mess around.
No, he doesn't.
No,
he doesn't.
No messing around.
Did you ever laugh at Elon's ambitions?
No. I, of course, always worried. What are they going to do? They were in South Africa, and we were in the anti-apartheid war against South Africa was getting really serious. The Bush War was on. They were more or less in line to go into the military. I mean, we barely discussed it, but I thought about it a lot. And I'd been in the military for 11 years, and so I was a commanding officer of a squadron, and I knew how harsh the military was, and by that stage already, I had some friends whose sons were coming home missing a leg and so on, and so it was not good, and I didn't know what to do about it. I wanted to try and make them, sort of more tough, but it was not easy. And I honestly am so glad that they did go to the United States, because they were not ready for the South African military. Yeah. I'd just like to mention that the Cubans sent 50,000 troops against South Africa, and the South Africans pushed them all the way back to Luanda, and South Africa was about to take Luanda, and which is the capital of Angola, and at the UN, the Cuban minister said that because of South Africa's aggression against them, they're sending another 15,000 troops to Angola to fight the South Africans. And our foreign minister, Pick Botha, who's a very famous guy, he said, well, if you do that, we'll send 1,000 troops to the border from our side. So the Cuban emissary minister, he said this is an insult to Cuba. So our foreign minister said, but well, you've had 50,000 troops here so far. We've had 3,000 up on the border, and we're about to take Uganda. So, you know, we only need 1,000 against your 15,000. It was an insult, but it was also quite funny. But that gives you some idea of the South African military. And
so,
my boys were not ready for that. They were not ready to.
So, did you ever stop Elon from wanting to go to the US?
No, not at all. I mean, we never discussed him going into the military, and we never ever discussed. They say that Elon left South Africa because he didn't want to fight for apartheid or something like that. That's nonsense. We never ever discussed it. They were little boys, so they were happy boys doing happy things. You never thought about stuff like that, but I did, and but I also knew that if you go to university, if you enrolled, accepted at university and enrolled, you're immediately exempt from going into the military. So obviously, when he finished matric, I took him to Cape Town. He didn't like Cape Town University, so he said he'd rather go to Pretoria University. So he went to Pretoria University, enrolled there, which made him immediately exempt until he was finished with university. And then it was 6 months later, after being at Pretoria University, that he was very depressed. He didn't like it, and it was Afrikaans speaking. He wasn't Afrikaans. I bought him what was known as a sort of a Hooper racing bike, and it had been stolen at the university. So, and he'd been using this to ride incredible long distances, like 30 kilometers, 20 miles, and back. And so he was 6 months after he started at Pretoria University, he was very depressed. You know, on one social occasion, he didn't want to go, and so I tried to get him to go. He said, "No, he doesn't go. He doesn't want to." And I said, "It's not working, Elon, is it, at Pretoria?" And he said, "Yes, it's not working for me." And then something came to me. I don't know why, but just suddenly something came to me, and I said to him, "Do you want to go and study in the United States?" So he didn't say, "What do you mean?" He said, "Yes." And his whole face lit up, and he changed completely. And I said, "Right, well, let's do that." And so the next day he went to a colleague of mine at the American consulate and got all the information. And 11 days later, he left for the United States on a return ticket. So he had a year-long return ticket and some cash, and we arranged for him to stay with relatives and friends, which he did. And so that's how he left. Did you ask me, did I ever try and stop him?
Yes.
No, of course not. And
was his mother already there when he went or not?
no. His mother and Tosca left to go to America. I think a year, 9 months later or something, after Elon had gone, and something like that. And in any case, Kimball and I joined Elon in America 5 months later, and we did a 6-week crisscross tour of Canada and the United States, the three of us, to have a look at America and see in general what you know, where we might go, or you know, what we should do and so on. And yeah, so Elon had jobs during that short period of time. He went with, I gave him about, as far as I recall, about 4,000 Canadian dollars, and he had enough money for the basics, and but he did get jobs, and he acquitted himself quite well in the United States, in Canada. So I believe he told me on one occasion, he worked as a waiter, and we did a big restaurant, so he knew about restaurants. But at any rate, he worked as a waiter, and apparently on one occasion, another waiter tried to pull a knife on him or something. But Elon was big, and he handled it, you see, so that was good to hear. And so he acquitted himself quite well.
Errol, just to come back to this topic, if what you're saying today is true, why all the bitterness?
Bitterness. Well, I think that after, when May left, you know, she was like the Queen of Pretoria, I mean, or the Princess, well, Queen, I'd say, the Queen of Pretoria. I mean, as a city councillor, the employees of the council used to say they can't wait for when May is going to be the mayoress, and so on. And she had a very wonderful life, really. In our home, which is today the headquarters of the United Nations in the Southern Hemisphere, in Pretoria, was palatial. It was wonderful, and of course we had the home at the coast as well. And so I think when she left, I think she thought it would go. She would like. It was going to be really good, and she was going to, meet better. I don't know, better people or somebody better, and it didn't turn out like that. As I say, she seemed to associate with people I saw later that were somewhat beneath her, but it wasn't anything I could do about it. And so she had a really hard time after leaving, and really hard time. And
if you
I think that took its toll on her, because we didn't. I mean, I don't know. I think she may have thought I was going to have a hard time, but.
Or maybe you're going to resist the divorce. I mean, you gave it
No, I
to
never
her so
resisted.
so quickly. I mean, it must have been almost a shock for
Oh,
her.
I don't
maybe
know. I
as
don't know
well,
about that,
it was-
but I would say that for me, being on my own gave me opportunity to do sailing, which ocean sailing, which I couldn't do, but because May didn't like that kind of thing, so I was able to start doing things. I bought a horse farm, which I wanted to do, and the kids came up to me every holiday and everything. So things went pretty well for us, and but it didn't go so well for her, and I think that is the cause of the bitterness.
Did you ever see May again then after the divorce?
Well, I would not very much because she was in Durban, but and the boys, like even when Elon came to stay with me, they and Kimmel, they really saw very little of her because obviously she was in another city 400 miles away, So one time she came up to about 2.5 years after we were divorced. I got a call to say that she's coming with her friend Gaynor Becker, who was a famous South African movie star at one time, and she started a big modeling agency. And anyway, so I said sure. So they came over to the horse farm and in Johannesburg, and Gaynor said to me and her, said, "Look, you two have a lot to talk about, so I'm going to leave you two." And she left May and I together, and the idea was that I realized that we should talk about our marriage and our relationship. And I had become a little bit jaded by that time, and I was kind of angry, and I'm sorry that I didn't try and do something at that point, but instead I was angry, and if this had happened maybe a few months after the divorce, I would have maybe been more amenable. But it happened 2.5 years later, and I was, at that point, I didn't think it was funny anymore, what she had done. So I basically, they realized I'm not prepared to really talk about it, and Gaynor and May left, and that was more or less the last time I saw her.
Thank you very much, Errol. So yes, we all try and do what we can to make ourselves survive, and sometimes we get hurt, and with hurt there's a lot of aggression that can be accompanied. I wish all of these people the best.